Welcome to the Educational Studies and Urban Teachers Program Virtual Open House. While participating in today's event, just a friendly reminder, please sign in with your first and last name, keep your mic on mute, and turn off your video camera. This should be the case at all times while the presentation is going on. Today's agenda will include Johns Hopkins School of Education overview, presenter's introduction, overview of featured programs, admissions requirements, financial aid and scholarship, as well as an opportunity to ask questions. We will have a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. So please hold all questions until the end, and you can submit your questions via the chat option. Today's agenda will also include graduate certificate urban education information about our MS Ed Studies Individualized Interdisciplinary Option, as well as our independent schools and urban teachers program. Just some quick facts about Johns Hopkins School of Education. We were established in 2007 and is the national leader in education reform. Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. JHU also was ranked number 16 in education in the 2019 Times Higher Education World University Ranking. SOE has collaborative partnerships with urban teachers programs as well as Teach for America. Just some quick facts. 2,465 enrolled students for fall of 2019. There are 30+ programs that were offered here at Johns Hopkins School of Education on campus as well as online. And to date, we have approximately 22,000 alumni. Today's presenter will be Dr. Eric Rice. Dr. Rice is the Assistant Clinical Professor and Interim Chair of Counseling and Educational Studies. He joined faculty in 2003. He received his PhD from Johns Hopkins University. And Dr. Rice's research focus is urban education, school reform, race and diversity, as well as school funding, community involvement, and charter schools. Some of Dr. Rice's recent projects includes partnering with Uganda's Makerere University to create a study abroad program in education and public health. In the next few seconds, you will be hearing from Dr. Rice in reference to the Master of Science in Education, Educational Studies, Individualized Interdisciplinary Option, or Independent Schools Option.
Appreciate the introduction, and thank you guys for taking time out of your Saturday to join us here. I'm trying to decide if I should turn my video on. I guess you've seen that wonderful photo of me, so I'll just leave it, keep the focus on the PowerPoint. The first thing I'm going to say is that we have a number of different Masters of Science in Education programs at Johns Hopkins. And so all of the programs, with the exception of the Graduate Certificate in Urban Education that I'll be talking about today, are actually part of our Master of Science in Education. So that's it. They all lead to the Master of Science in Education and the concentration in educational studies. And then within that, we have a number of options that I'll be talking about, including the Individualized Interdisciplinary Option, the Independent Schools Option, and even the Urban Teachers Option that I'll mention is actually part of that same program. So if you can advance the slide. I'm going to start by talking about our Independent Schools Option. And this is a 33-credit program that is really intended for people who either are early career teachers in an independent school and maybe got hired on based on your knowledge of a subject area, or for those planning to teach in independent schools. And it really focuses on kind of trying to combine a foundational pedagogy and knowledge base. We try and make that as practical as we can, with a fair amount of individualization. This is a face-to-face program, so most of our students are here from the Baltimore area, although people do travel. And Baltimore, if you're from the area, it has a wide variety of independent schools. So within this program, there's actually 15 credits of electives that allows students to really tailor this program for whatever independent school they might be either working in or hoping to work in. And we hire faculty with expertise who have either worked in or continue to work in independent schools and have experience in supervising candidates. There is not an actual internship or practicum built into the program, but that is something that we are looking at, and we have a lot of contacts so that we can often help people arrange for an in-school experience if they have not yet taught, and that's something that they're looking for. So it's really a program that's designed for educators with a range of different experiences, and the program outcomes are aligned with the Interstate Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium and with the AIMS Standards, Association of Independent Maryland and DC Schools. The coursework for that program includes 9 credits of core courses. So everybody does the sequence with Introduction to the Independent School and Curriculum Instruction and Assessment in Independent School Settings in the fall. And they actually take a whole child course in the spring. So that's one of the 9 credits of required coursework in development. And then there's an option of, in that same 9 credits, there's an option, there's a number of different instructional technology courses that you can choose from, as well as 2 special needs courses. So you might, depending on the school that you're interested in, choose from either a course in special education or a course in gifted education. And I skipped over the seminar on teacher leadership because that's actually the capstone. So that would come at the end of the program. It has to be one of your final 2 semesters. So you've got the 9 credits of core courses, 9 credits of required coursework, and then, as I mentioned earlier, 15 credits of elective courses that allow you to really tailor this program for your own needs and for the sort of school that you're interested in working in. So this is the scheduling. We try and make it as convenient as possible. Courses do start as early as 4:15 in the afternoon, but the hope is that you can get there from an independent school job. Small class sizes and individual attention from instructors who I mentioned do generally work independent schools or have had a relationship with independent schools. Now in the electives, those would be courses that you would have a great deal of flexibility. So those courses could be taught by our core faculty or specialists in gifted education or what have you. But we really try and infuse the program with, kind of best practices aligned with the state and national standards and a world-class faculty, and we feel like our reputation's on the line with it. So we really try and make it a strong program. So I'm going to switch gears and talk about the individualized interdisciplinary option within the educational studies program. And that's designed for educators interested in really a little bit more customization. So there are a number of options in the program. So it can be from 33 to 39 credits, depending on the options that you choose. And I want to be clear that, and actually this is true for the independent schools option as well, but these are not programs that are meant to lead to teacher certification. Independent schools, it's not necessary. And in educational studies, in the individualized interdisciplinary option, this is for people who either already have certification and don't need to pursue it, or who are pursuing work that might not require teacher certification. And there's a couple of caveats to that I'll get to in a second. But it is a degree designed with 2 different pathways. So in the first pathway, you would choose from one of our graduate certificate programs. And we offer, I'll be talking about the urban education one in a moment, but we offer a number of different programs: Mind, Brain, and Teaching, Leadership and Instruction, or Leadership in Technology Integration, K-12 Math Instructional Leadership, K-12 STEM Instructional Leadership, a number of other things that you can find on our website if you look under academics and graduate certificate programs. But in option 1, you would choose 1 graduate certificate, and then there's room for 3 core courses in the program: an instruction course, Advanced Instructional Strategies, a research course, and the same capstone as I mentioned earlier in the seminar in teacher leadership. And then you'd have room for 9 electives. So that, in this case, the interdisciplinary option allows you to combine core knowledge in one area through the graduate certificate program, plus some electives. Pathway 2, you choose 2 of our graduate certificate programs. So if, for example, you were interested in applying, maybe you're a teacher in Baltimore City and you're interested in applying the latest in research on the brain to your work in an urban school is you could choose to combine the Urban Education Graduate Certificate Program with the Mind, Brain, and Teaching Graduate Certificate Program, and come out with a whole lot of more knowledge about how to reach your students. And the one thing that I mentioned earlier, that when this can lead to certification, is if one of the graduate certificates you choose is tied to a certification endorsement, then that in itself can lead to a certification. So if you're already a certified teacher, you can choose the School Administration and Supervision Certificate to lead to your admin certification. You can choose the Gifted Ed Certificate to lead to your gifted endorsement, or one of our instructional leadership certificates, either the STEM or math, pre-K through 6 STEM, pre-K through 6 math, to get that instructional leadership endorsement on your certification. So, one of the most common ways that people might use this would be to combine, say, one of those with urban education. So if you were interested in, learning how to reach gifted populations in Baltimore City, you could combine the gifted ed with urban education and really come out prepared to serve that really important population in Baltimore City that doesn't always get the services they need. Or if you wanted to be an urban principal, combine urban education with school admin and supervision, for example. So that's the basic outline of the interdisciplinary option. So this is a list of the graduate certificate programs that you could potentially look at. You see kind of, and these can be used towards the one or the certificate option in the individualized interdisciplinary option. So you see certificates on the left side that don't necessarily require you to be in K-12 teaching or supervisory roles. So we've had students who take the autism certificate. We've had students do that who are parents who are just interested in learning more about their kids, but also students who might be working in specialized programs for autistic kids outside of schools, just have an interest in the topic. Urban education, we have a lot of people in that program who are teachers, but we also have a lot of folks who work in, say, after-school programs or ed policy shops or other, non-governmental organizations devoted to school reform. Educational leadership for independent schools is different than the masters in independent schools that I mentioned. It's really for folks who want to go into leadership positions in independent schools. And then, as I mentioned, leadership in technology integration. That's for folks who have a particular interest in educational technology. Again, might be a teacher, but wouldn't have to be. You might be working in a central office or working in a policy shop related to ed tech or any number of things. Then on the right side, you see for candidates who might, hold teacher certification and interested in additional professional development. So gifted education does lead to that endorsement. Math instructional leadership or STEM instructional leadership also leads to that endorsement. Mind, Brain, and Teaching is a little different. It I think is best suited for people who are applying that in teaching, but you don't have to be a certified teacher to do that. You can be working in a nonprofit or just be interested in the latest research on the brain. That's an interesting certificate because it really draws on research going on in other parts of Johns Hopkins on what do we know about the brain, what do we know about neurology, and what are the implications for education. And then finally, as I mentioned, school administration and supervision, which leads to the administrative. It meets the requirements in Maryland for the Admin 1 certification, and Maryland has reciprocity with about 40 other states. And so you'll note here that some of these are available online and some of them are not. If you choose online certificates for your for the certificates you would use towards the interdisciplinized or individualized interdisciplinary program, then you can make that degree fully online. But if you choose something like educational leadership for independent schools or urban education, then you would have some face-to-face courses. So I'm going to switch gears and just talk specifically about the graduate certificate in urban education because I'm the advisor to that. It's an 18 credit certificate, so we do require a research course in that. Now, if you are using that towards the master's, that would count for the research course that was a part of your 9 credits of core courses. But it's really designed to assist early career certified teachers and, as I said, other educational professionals. So we have a lot of people who've worked in central offices for urban schools, folks who work in DC in policy or lobbying or things like that, or school reform organizations, after school programs, all kinds of different things really, but in understanding, valuing, and contributing to the rich tapestry of schools and communities in urban and urbanizing settings. And part of what we're getting at there is that, in many ways, one of the things that we talk about in a lot of the courses is urban schools are often characterized as diverse, but often that's kind of code for talking about serving underrepresented minorities. Baltimore City is, I would not really characterize as a diverse district, but it exists in an urban area that's very diverse. And so really thinking through what does that mean for education, and what does it mean to be culturally responsive, and how do we work with populations to try and close the achievement gap. And we also, I think that this applies more and more, not just to cities, but to many of the suburbs around cities that, that we refer to there as urbanizing settings. And it's meant to really build a deep understanding of urban residents and the issues that they face. We try and take a strengths-based perspective and look at really some of the assets and resources in those communities. There's a focus on creating strong partnerships between schools, families, and communities. And there is students in the program can choose a track, either policy, partnerships, or pedagogy, depending on their interest. And so particularly in that partnership track, you work closely with faculty from our National Network of Partnership Schools. And then everyone takes a leadership course to develop the leadership skills necessary for leading change initiatives. And this can be either combined with a second certificate or with core courses and electives to make up the individualized interdisciplinary studies option. So the admissions requirements across all of these are pretty similar, but for the independent schools, for the interdisciplinary option and the independent schools option, at a minimum, students need to have a 3.0 or better cumulative undergraduate grade point average, complete the application form, which is some basically just demographic information, work information, that kind of thing. Payment of an $80 application fee. We need to see official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions. So that includes not only wherever you graduated from, but anything you've done since high school. There's an essay, personal statement, as well as a resume or CV, 2 letters of recommendation. And I'd note here, we do not require the GRE for this. The interdisciplinary option does require it's kind of a 2-part application. You take care of this all at once, but you start by choosing the interdisciplinary option in our admissions portal. And at some point in the application process, you're asked if you want to add 1 or 2 graduate certificates to the application. And then you would interview with, depending on which certificates you choose, with the advisor for that certificate, which in the urban education case is me, as well as the advisor for the master's itself, which is me. So you might have 2 interviews. We try and schedule those together when we can, but you might have 2 interviews, and usually people get the same decision. But it is not inconceivable that one certificate might say, we don't have space this year. And then as the master's advisor, I would work with you to look at other options. And the deadlines are rolling. So we are actually still looking at summer applications now. Certainly you're ahead of the priority deadline for fall applications, but we will consider applications at any time of year, depending on how much space is available in the certificates that interest you. For international applicants, you also need to submit either a passing score on one of the English as a foreign language exams, or a TOEFL waiver form. So if you've completed a degree, for example, in an English-speaking country, that's generally enough to waive the TOEFL. We usually want to do an interview and just make sure that you do okay. But if you've had plenty of time in English-speaking coursework, then normally we can waive that. And international applicants also need to submit a course-by-course evaluation of their academic transcript if you earned your degree outside of the US, and there's information on the website about that. Just looking at tuition and fees for next year, all of the programs that I've described so far are billed on a per credit basis. So that's at $833 per credit for face-to-face courses in the master's and certificate programs. It is a little higher for technology reasons for the online courses. So it comes to a total of $897 per credit. And we do charge a couple of fees, an $80 application fee, $175 per semester registration enrollment fee, and then there is a fee when you ultimately sign up for graduation. And all of that's available on the website under the tuition and fees section. And I do want to, as I transition to talking about our Urban Teachers program, that is billed in a completely different way that we'll get to in a moment, but that you could also find more information on the Urban Teachers website. So with that transition, I am going to talk about our collaboration with Urban Teachers. This also does lead to the Masters of Science in Education with a concentration in educational studies, but it's a much more structured curriculum. So Urban Teachers is a clinically based residency and coaching model that guides students into full-time teaching positions at either traditional public or public charter schools. And we partner with 3 cities, Baltimore, Dallas, and Washington, D.C. And the first thing I want to say about this program is that it is a partnership with an outside organization, Urban Teachers. They handle the placement for your residency year 1, where you're a resident in someone else's classroom, and ultimately helping you arrange for your own teaching placement in year 2. We call that the fellows year, where you're a full-time teacher in your own classroom in one of those 3 cities. So one of the big results of that is that you do need to apply to and be accepted by the partner Urban Teachers before we look at your application. It is a full-time program, located in Baltimore, D.C. or Dallas, depending on whether you choose elementary, secondary English language arts, or mathematics. It can be between 40 and 42 credits, and it only starts in the summer. So we are still taking applications, although we're coming up on final deadlines for that. It's a 2-year master's program. The one caveat I want to say there is that the master's program itself is 2 years, but as a part of this partnership program, Urban Teachers is the alternative certification provider. So while our degree does not lead to certification, it is integrated into this larger partnership. And at the end of the 3rd year with Urban Teachers, you would receive not only your certification in your content area, elementary, secondary ELA, or secondary math, but you also receive special education certification. And that's one of the reasons it's a couple of credits higher than some of our other master's programs. It really is intended to prepare new teachers to succeed through this clinical training model. So the coursework is very much focused on the skills that you need, both in terms of things like classroom management and creating a strong culture in your school or in your classroom, as well as teacher moves and the pedagogy that you would use and the content knowledge to succeed in urban schools. So the centerpiece is that 14-month residency. So that starts in June and goes until the end of the following summer, the following August, where you are in someone else's classroom. And so you actually would move through a couple of classrooms, a summer placement in a summer school classroom. Usually your fall and spring placement would be with the same teacher, although occasionally that changes at the semester for some reason. And then a final summer school placement before starting your actual your own teaching career in your own room. So that residency and the clinically based model, I think, are what really differentiate this program from, say, other teacher preparation programs. Certainly, sometimes Urban Teachers gets lumped in with TFA as an alternative certification program, and it is an alternative certification program, but it's at the other end of the spectrum in some ways, and that you do have that 14 months of intensive preparation before going into your own classroom. And it leads to, as I said, the 2 certifications. A couple of highlights is that the clinical coursework includes preparation in both general and special education. Over the course of the program, you receive over 100 hours of one-on-one coaching in your resident and then in your own classroom to improve your teaching practice. So you get a lot of feedback and have to be good at taking that feedback. You get, it's a combination of a degree from a top-ranked university with really clinically focused and practically focused coursework. You get hands-on experience as a co-teacher in your first year with the expert guidance that comes from the coaching. Does lead to that dual certification. And it is, the tuition is run very differently. It's a total of $40,000 over the 2 years, billed $10,000 each of the fall and spring semesters. But in return from that, you are getting the residency in addition to the coursework. You receive a stipend during that first year. it's not huge, but I think it's about $20,000 from urban teachers. So you're paying $20,000 in, but getting $20,000 out that first year to help with your living expenses. In the second year, urban teachers pays your health insurance. In the second year, when you take over in your own classroom, you're getting a full teacher salary from your district, and then health insurance through that arrangement. And in the second year, you qualify for a AmeriCorps stipend based on the hours that you're putting in or that you put in during your first year. So that can lead to, I believe, another $10,000 towards tuition. And depending on your subject area and city, you might also qualify for the federal Teach Grant, which can be another, about $4,000 in the first year and $2,000 in the second year. And the reason for that difference is that we try and front load, although we spread the tuition over the 2 years equally, we try and front load the coursework in the first year. And that particular grant is tied to the number of credits you're taking. So those, you can go to our online application to fill out the application. And in this case, generally, because you do need to apply to urban teachers first, we waive some of the requirements because you've already turned in an essay and 2 letters of recommendation to them. So it's really the online application form, just the demographic information and getting us your official transcripts, and everything else has already been taken care of as a part of your application to urban teachers. And I think you can see that that website. It's a little hard to make out in blue, but it's just urbanteachers.org is where you would go to apply to urban teachers first. And then if accepted by them, then you would be given directions to go ahead and apply to us. Talking a little bit about financial aid and scholarships at Johns Hopkins, 82% of degree-seeking SOE students do borrow graduate loans, and our financial aid department is really top-notch at helping you access that. It is a convoluted process. I'm the father of a freshman in college and have found out how convoluted myself, filling out the FAFSA and such. But if you've done your tax returns, it really just kind of pulls information from that, and you can, there are a lot of different forms, but it's not that difficult. But you need to complete the FAFSA form, and you need to do that each year that you're going to be enrolled. So some people forget, they got financial aid for their first year and forget that they need to do it for their second. But you do that every year. And then a planned enrollment form that shows how many credits you're planning on taking. And we encourage people to complete the FAFSA at the same time as the admissions application. And that just allows all that data to get through and leaves time for decisions to be made so that your financial aid can be in place when you first start coursework. We actually, because we do have rolling admissions in a number of these programs, we can process your admission information pretty quickly, but the FAFSA process does take a little while, so it is good to get that started when you are applying. In addition to the federal financial aid programs, there are a number of institutional scholarships, but it is a limited number, and they are generally a little bit small, need-based scholarships available for fall and spring semesters each academic year. Because of the other grants that urban teachers get at that stipend in the first year, urban teachers candidates are not eligible for the institutional scholarships, but people in the independent schools program and the interdisciplinary program are. That application deadline is April 1st. So if you are interested in applying for next year, you would want to get that in and get your application in within the next 10 days, basically. And then a couple of just sources for other external scholarships, scholarship.com and teacher.org. So if you are interested in any of these programs, though, I do urge you to reach out to our financial aid office. They are super helpful at finding creative ways to fund your education. So I think now we are ready to open it up for questions. I know I've covered a number of different programs, and some of you may be interested in teacher certification here for the urban teachers. I recognize at least one name on the participant list from folks that someone I've talked to already about that program. Some of you may already be teachers and interested in the other programs, so I can take questions about any of it. And I believe we're using the chat room for that, but I'm also happy for people, if you're able to unmute yourself, I'm happy for you to do that and just ask the question, whatever's easiest for you.
At this time, we prefer that you text your question in the group chat. That way we can try to get to everyone's questions that are presented there versus unmuting yourself. So at this time, if you have any questions, For Dr. Rice, there's also a representative from Urban Teachers available to answer any questions about the Urban Teachers specifically. Please do so now by typing in the chat box, and we'll just give you a few minutes to do so. Thank you. Yeah, there was a lot of great information, Dr. Rice. So for the 9 core courses for interdisciplinary, are they offered online or face-to-face?
The core courses for interdisciplinary, the 9 credits of core courses. So there's a mix. The courses that are listed in the catalog. So the seminar on teacher leadership is the capstone required for any of the independent schools or interdisciplinary program, and that is offered online every summer. And so one caveat is, since that has to be in one of your final 2 semesters, that can lead to a delayed graduation if that's if you're taking that course in the summer, finishing up the rest of your coursework either summer or fall, your degree would be conferred, but you would not be able to walk in graduation until the following May. So that course is online every summer. The instructional strategies course and the action research course are not online, but we do have substitute courses that you can use to, if you were to pick one of our online certificates for the individualized interdisciplinary option, say mind, brain, and teaching, we generally would slot you into we do have some online research courses, and then we have a number of online courses that either address instruction or curriculum that would allow you to take that degree online.
Okay, so it appears, so I'm gonna take away your video, Doctor. So it appears that there are 2 questions. The first question is, what is JHU's plan to address COVID-19 outbreak and the start of the Urban Teachers Program, since that's right around the corner?
Yeah, so that is something that is in flux. I mean, to be quite honest, we don't know what things are going to be like in a couple of months. So right now we are proceeding along 2 tracks. And the first is we are preparing, and we are moving ahead with some hiring for the summer. We are moving ahead with our coursework schedule. And we are making sure that plans are in place so that if things are moving back to normal, and if things are open for the program to run as normal, we will be ready to do that. On the other hand, we are making a series of contingency plans for what it would look like if we needed to continue with all online coursework. Because the program is so clinically based, that does require significant modifications to both some of the assignments in the courses. So we're working on revising the syllabi in case we need to go that route. As well as obviously to the coaching model. And so we are looking at options that would include, but students in the program right now, for example, are videotaping themselves practicing lessons rather than getting their coaching based on lessons that they're actually doing in the classroom. And their coaches are watching those videos and providing feedback. So we're modifying the coaching model, and we'd be potentially doing the same thing in the summer, finding ways for you to practice the clinically based teaching in ways that you could receive video feedback, either as a part of your class itself. Now, our hope is that, and we are looking into, obviously K-12 schools are facing the same thing. So they're moving a lot of their instruction online and making plans for what that would look like for summer school. And since we partner so closely with Baltimore, DC, and Dallas, as well as a couple charter networks in DC, and mostly the Uplift Charter Network in Dallas, we are talking to them about what their summer school plans are so that we could make sure that our students did have some kind of, we're figuring out what that would look like for the residency if instruction is online. One thing I would say, my hope is that we don't have to do this, but because the School of Education does have so much experience with online education, if where this ends up is that, both K-12 education and higher education is online for the summer, we have a lot of expertise in doing that already. And so I think we're well prepared to both help our partner districts figure out how to put their instruction online and train our teacher candidates, our residents in the Urban Teachers Program next year, as well as our fellows, in best practices for online education. So that is a kind of a long-winded way of saying we are making 2 sets of plans and trying to be ready for whatever happens next. I don't know if any of my Urban Teachers colleagues want to jump in on that.
I think there is Anne on the line. Anne, if you would like to give any feedback, you can certainly unmute.
Yeah, it's actually myself and Zay as well. I
Oh,
think,
okay, great.
yeah, he hit it right on the head. That's essentially everything.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, it sounds like there's some, general contingency plans in place, so that's a good thing. The next response is, thank you so much for this overview. I am interested in the Urban Teachers Program. Could you repeat the rough funding numbers for AmeriCorps and Teach Grants year 1 and 2?
Yeah, so, and I don't know whether this part wasn't asked about. So in year 1, you would receive, I believe, and Annie or Zay, feel free to jump in, but it's a $20,000 stipend. Depending on the city, sometimes that's paid directly to you. Sometimes that's paid through the partner district as part of being listed as a paraprofessional in the district. You then in year 1, the Teach Grant is usually about just a little over $4,000 because we do front load the credits. In year 2, it's a little over $2,000. Caveat there is that the Teach Grant is based on being in a high needs area in a high needs district, and all of the districts are high needs, and that's not likely to change. But the secondary mathematics always counts because it's a federal high needs area. But to qualify for the grant, if you're secondary or ELA, or if you're elementary, those are local shortage areas, teacher shortage areas, and those change every year. So we don't know yet, and probably won't until August, whether those two will count and in which jurisdictions. Now, everybody in Urban Teachers can apply for that grant because you get the special education certification, which is a high needs federal area. But unless you are going to teach in a self-contained special ed classroom, it can be very difficult to fulfill the service requirement that comes with that grant if you qualify through special ed. So you're better off qualifying through your primary certification area if you can. If you qualify through special ed and then don't teach in a special ed, that grant just converts to a loan and becomes similar to traditional federal financial aid. It's probably more detail than you want, but I wanted to be clear that that we can't guarantee the federal Teach Grant. It does depend on what next year's shortage areas are. So then the final piece on that was the AmeriCorps stipend, I believe, is around $10,000 or $11,000. So jump in, Annie or Zay, if you've got more to say on that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add one piece. Oh, you can go, Zay.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one piece about the certification. So as he mentioned, the 2 are your chosen subject of study and special education, but at the Dallas site, you do actually receive a 3rd certification, which is ESL. So I don't think it has any direct effect on funding or your eligibility, but it is just another amenity, I guess, that comes with the program if you apply for the Dallas site.
And one piece on that is that's like special ed. If you get that certification, and basically you sit for the exam for it, and as long as you pass the exam, you get that. It's like special education in that having the certification allows you to qualify for the grant, but unless you teach in an ESL dedicated classroom, it doesn't count for your service requirement.
All right, so we will take some additional questions. Again, at this time is an opportunity for those who are present to ask some additional questions about the programs. So again, we'll give you guys just maybe 1 to 2 more minutes to see if there are any more questions that the audience has at this time. So here's a question. I understand that I will be participating through through Urban Teachers as the third party, and then attending Hopkins for my master's degree. What exactly am I receiving a master's degree in? Is it Urban Teachers? Is it Educational Studies? Can you please clarify?
Sure. So the master's degree, all of the programs I've talked about today, including Urban Teachers, fit under our Masters of Science in Education with a concentration in Educational Studies. So the actual degree that you receive at the end says Masters of Science in Education.
All right, so at this time, I will go ahead and conclude the question and answer sections. Thank you for including your email address, Dr. Rice. If there are any further questions, you guys, please feel free to email him directly. And let me see. We also have contacts within the JHU Office of Admissions. I am Tyreen Maddox, MBA Admissions Coordinator for the Office of Admissions School of Education. And so if there are ever any questions that you have for the admissions department, please feel free to email soe-admissionsupport@jhu.edu. And below is also our contact number, 1-877-548-7631. And also included is Urban Teachers' email address as well, which is admissions@urbanteachers.org. Before we end the presentation, was there any additional feedback or anything you guys wanted to offer, Ann or Zay or Dr. Rice at this time?
I don't think I have anything else. It looks like Annie has put her email in the chat as well, if you want to reach out to her specifically about recruitment. I do welcome any further questions that you might have as you think about your options.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Rice, for presenting. And I just pray that everyone is safe and you all have a great rest of your day.